Death Note is one of the most highly regarded anime of all time, and quite rightly so. I think it is brilliant. I made a review of it recently which was highly praiseworthy of it. But if there is one caveat to how good Death Note is, it's probably the fact that a lot of people think that it should have only been 25 or 26 episodes long. Or, if you don't quite think that, you do certainly think that the last third doesn't quite live up to the first 2/3. And you know what, to a certain extent I can agree with that. But today I'm here to talk about why I think the last 10 episodes have a lot of redeeming qualities about them, and although it may not live up to the heights of the Light versus L battle, there is certainly a lot to enjoy. So first of all, what is the public opinion of this? Well, when I finished watching Death Note, I scoured the internet forums, the YouTube comment section, the absolute cesspool that is, and I saw quite a few comments that, well, there was a lot of hate of Nier, for example. Nier seemed to be very hated. There are certainly people that like Nier, but there are also a lot of people that really don't like Nier as well. They consider him a sort of cheap carbon copy of L. There are a lot of people who said that they simply just stopped watching after L died. Yeah, that's the big spoiler, by the way. That when L died in episode 25. And look, you can do whatever you want. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to watch anime, but I do think it is a little bit naive to just stop watching a series just because one character has died. You can have your own opinion, that's fine. I'm, a big proponent of freedom of speech, but I think that people are overly harsh on the last 10 episodes when that's kind of unnecessary. And why do I think they're overly harsh? Well, to be honest, rather than being an indictment on the last 10 episodes, I think actually really it's a testimony to how good the first 26 are. Because the first 26 were so good that although the last 10 are really good, comparatively it is quote unquote trash. But first of all, I'm going to try and be a little bit objective and see sort of the other viewpoint, as it were. What made the last 10 episodes or so not quite as good as the first 26 or 27? Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the omission of certain elements and characters that were so beloved in those first 26 episodes. So there were certain things that I missed. One would be Misa, for example. Now, Misa was in the last 10 episodes, but her character was severely reduced. She forgot that she was the second Kira, and she was basically reduced to a whiny teenager brat model kind of character. Nothing hugely interesting. She was certainly more interesting before. Another thing I hugely missed was Ryuk. Again, he was in the first 27 episodes, but his role was drastically reduced. His screen time was drastically reduced. And again, the relationship between him and Light wasn't really explored in those last 10 episodes. Obviously, I hugely missed L as well. He's arguably the most faultless character ever that I've ever seen because he's so interesting. But to be honest, I think the greatest loss of the last 12 episodes, and I think we can all agree on this, was Aizawa's hair. What happened to the afro hair? That is the biggest tragedy of all. So yeah, there was certainly a few things that I did kind of miss in the last 12 episodes. But do you know what? I think the reason they got rid of L, that they reduced Misa and Ryuk's role and maybe even got rid of Aizawa's hair, was because they didn't want they being the writers, didn't want there to be a huge amount of continuity. The whole theme of Death Note is that you're sort of just starting to get comfortable with the concept and bang, a bombshell gets dropped. There's a second Kira. Bang, another bombshell gets dropped. There's a third Kira. Every time you're just getting comfortable, you just get steered in the completely opposite direction. And that's one of the great things about Death Note, is that L's death is so unexpected, and that's what makes it so brilliant. If it was predictable, if it had happened in the last episode, if it hadn't happened at all, then arguably the most memorable scene, the most memorable character wouldn't have been quite so special. I also talked about in my review that L's death is something of it's very humanizing in a way. He was really a genius detective. He was very quirky, he was very weird, he was very likable, but I didn't think he was hugely relatable. I mean, there's basically no one in real life that's quite like L, and that's because he's so special. But the fact that he dies really makes him more human. It shows that he is just like you and me in a way, that he has thoughts, he has feelings, he has emotions. It made him so much more real. So I think that his death, and particularly the fact that it was unexpected in episode 25, is really actually one of the most powerful things in the whole series. And whether you hated the fact that he died, whether you cried for 3 months because he died, it made the whole anime a lot more powerful in my opinion, and it made it a lot more memorable. So, you know what, L's death, as painful as it was, maybe it was for the greater good of the anime as a whole. But let's talk more in detail about the last 10 episodes. And I'm firstly going to talk about a character which, if you didn't watch the last 10 episodes, you would have missed. And that's Melo. And I thought Melo was a very, very interesting character. I think it was definitely my favourite character that was introduced in the last 10 episodes. And the reason I think that is because Melo he's a genius like L and Nier. Not quite as clever as those two, but he is still very, very clever. But he is just completely different to them. Nier is very much a strategist. He's, playing with dice, but he's thinking about the next move. L is constantly thinking about what's going on in Light's head, what's going on in Misa's head. Melo is a loose cannon. He is completely off the wall. He's very impulsive. He doesn't really think too much about things. He's very much just sort of diving head first and sort of rolling with his emotions. And that's what made him, his contrast to the other detectives was what made him so special. And he, of course, was an integral part of taking down Light, taking down Kira. And I think it was because he was sort of a rogue element that Light couldn't really factor in. Light could kind of factor in what Nier was going to do, because Nier is similar to L. He'd already quote-unquote defeated L, yes, with the help of two Shinigami and a sort of crazy girlfriend, but he had defeated L. And I feel like he could have defeated Nier if it was one-on-one. But Melo being the rogue element is such an interesting concept, because I think that's ultimately possibly what led to Light's downfall. And also, talking of Melo, let's talk about his friend. This is probably one of the most badass and sort of funny scenes of the whole anime. And the dude, he's just been chased down by the police, gets out of the car, so swag, so badass. He's like, well, you're not going to shoot me. And he just gets gunned down. Okay, I'm sorry, but the last 10 episodes were worth watching just for that scene alone. Such a great scene. This character had, I only remember about 20 seconds of screen time that he actually had. But those 20 seconds were worth watching 10 episodes for. So, again, if you didn't watch it, you're missing out on more great characters. But let's talk about, on a sort of more serious note, let's actually talk about Nier. Because Nier, like I said earlier, and I said in my review as well, he's possibly the most polarizing character of Death Note. You either love him, you either think, yeah, he's great, he was a great, replacement for L, he was a great successor, or you think, oh my god, I hate him, he was terrible, he wasn't clever, he just had luck on his side, Melo had to sacrifice himself, and Nier basically did nothing. This is what I said in my review. I'm going to sort of summarise it firstly about Nier, is that the great thing about Nier is the irony of his name. He is anything but Nier. He is really quite cold, he isn't hugely charismatic, he isn't sociable at all. He has very, very little interest in communicating with Light, apart from the really obvious things and apart from right at the end at the warehouse. He's very, very distant, cold, calculated, and more sort of keeping his thoughts in his head. And that is kind of different to L. Anyone that says Nier is a perfect carbon copy of L, but just not quite as cool, I think is wrong, because actually L was, in many ways, although he was socially awkward, although he was very quirky and he certainly wasn't a particularly normal person, he actually did enjoy the whole social aspect of it, I think. I think he enjoyed conversing with Light. In fact, he even considered Light, and eventually Misa as well, as friends, the first friends that he basically ever had. And I think he enjoyed that. He seemed to enjoy the Kira case a lot more than Nier. And I think maybe a message to take away from Death Note is that, and the reason potentially why L wasn't able to completely finalise the Kira case, but Nier was, and I think Nier was the perfect person to actually finalise the Kira case, is I think it's kind of in the way that L didn't really want to. You know how in The Dark Knight, the Joker and the Batman can't bring themselves to kill each other because it's just too much fun, and that's something which the Joker, Heath Ledger, points out at the end. He's not going to kill me, this whole thing's too much fun, the whole cat and mouse. And I think that was maybe L's downfall as well, that I think he enjoyed the fact that this was the most interesting case he'd ever taken hold of. I think that was potentially L's downfall, was that he got too emotionally invested in the case. If you remember, there's a bit where they're solving the whole Yotsuba incident where Higuchi, the third Kira, has the notebook, and he basically gets into a bit of a sort of depression. He doesn't want to do anything, he just sits around eating cake all day with massive bags under his eyes, and he sort of gives up on the case for a very short amount of time until Light literally punches him in the face. And I think, that sort of emotional investment that he had, his sort of desire, which was rooted a lot in emotions and feeling, more so than Nier, was possibly his downfall. And I think that Nier was the perfect person to complete the Kira case because he was just so much more cold. He was like, I have no connection to you, Light. I don't want to be friends. I want this damn thing to end once and for all. It's been going on for over 5 years now, and he was the perfect person to just end the case. Next, I want to consider if Death Note had only been 26 episodes long. So let's say they had ended it at the point where Light basically becomes God of the New World. I think the problem with ending it at episode 26 is that I think there would be even more critics. I think the very same people that are complaining about the last 10 episodes, the kind of people who are basically whinging on internet forums, would have been equally as mad, if not even more mad, at the fact that it ended at episode 26. Because first of all, L would have got no justice. L ultimately gets justice over Light because Light dies, and you see the figure of L standing over Light's dead body as a sort of, you might have won the battle, but I won the war ultimately. I was really the one that took you down. Nia just had to finish the job. So first of all, there would have been no justice for L. Second of all, the quote-unquote bad guy would have won, which I think a lot of people wouldn't have liked. People that didn't watch it after episode 26, you haven't received any justice for yourself. You are now wallowing in eternal misery knowing that L is dead for basically no reason because he didn't solve the case, and his case wasn't completed by anyone, and now Light is now your new god and will decide when you die. So people that watched up to episode 26, I hope you're happy because that is now your fate. And I will finally end off by being, once again, a little bit objective and maybe a little bit critical of the last 10 episodes because, like I say, they weren't as good as the first 26. Don't get me wrong, the last 10 episodes weren't perfect. I don't think they were as good as the first 26. I still think there is plenty of redeeming qualities to them, and I feel like if you did miss out on the last 10 episodes, probably go and watch them because they are very good and you certainly did miss out. If you're going around on internet forums saying it is trash, I think that is an overreaction because I think they certainly are anything but trash. They're not as good, that's fair enough, but I don't think they're trash. But of course, you do reserve the right to hold your own opinion, and I do believe in freedom of speech, so you go ahead and write down whatever. But I'm just this is sort of just a defense of the last 10 episodes. Anyway, I've been ranting for way too long now. I'm going to stop. But I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to be making more videos like this and more reviews of various other anime as well. So, hope you enjoyed. Hope you didn't find this too rambling. And I'll see you around.